Welcome to the Business of Craft podcast presented by Stitchcraft Marketing. For nearly 16 years, we've taught retailers, manufacturers, and makers in the craft space how to thrive. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what you hear, leave a review to help others find our content.
Welcome to episode 3 of season 8 of Business of Craft. Today we have another solo cast to cover one of the topics in our book, Marketing Magic for Savvy Craft Businesses, which my whole team wrote in 2025. Our book's available for sale as a Kindle or a print or an audio version on our website, stitchcraftmarketing.com. I'm your host, Leanne Pressly, and I'm the founder and CEO of Stitchcraft Marketing. When on this show, Business of Craft, we talk about all things craft marketing and sometimes just general business related. And today we are covering a really fundamental question, one that I talk about with my clients in almost every conversation when they onboard with our agency, which is, who is your customer, really? And I would say if you're tempted to answer with a response I hear all the time, which is, oh, I will sell to anyone. I have a yarn shop. I'm selling to anyone who wants to knit or crochet, or I have a quilt shop and I will sell to anyone that needs fabric. I would say stick around because this episode is definitely for you. And I would hope that by the end of the episode, I will change your mind that you will not just sell to anyone. So our chapter 4 of the book dives into this fundamental, basic, table stakes concept of our marketing magic, which is you cannot sell to everyone. I mean, you can try, sure, of course, but I always say if you are intentionally marketing to everybody, then you are marketing and or selling to nobody. It's really that important. So that's why we talk so much about customer avatars at Stitchcraft Marketing. You might also hear this term referred to as a persona or your ideal customer or your target customer. A customer avatar is basically your detailed profile of just that. Who is your ideal customer? This is the person that your marketing efforts should be directed at. You should be speaking directly to this person emotionally and personally. And again, I'm not here to tell you that you should be turning away customers. I often use a fishing metaphor when describing the difference here, which is you're going to have your net ready. And of course, you're going to sell your products to any, quote, air quotes here, fish that swims in your net. But we're going to be really strategic about the kind of lure that we want on the end of our line when we're trying to catch the big one, if you will. So when you know your avatar, marketing becomes a whole lot easier because now you're talking to a someone and not just shouting in the void. And I also, when I'm doing my speaking engagements or I'm doing other one-on-one teaching, I always ask people, hey, for a second, just put on your consumer hat. When you think about the campaigns that are really compelling to you, whether that be social media posts or a newsletter that you receive, or when you're out and about in the world, is it the generic, broad-based messages that get you? Or is it when you have that super specific sense of belonging or an experience with a brand? And I would argue that, the most compelling, trustworthy relationships that you have with brands are the ones that are speaking directly and specifically to you. So in the book, we have a lot of materials to help you identify who your avatar is. And when we teach the customer avatar, we think about it in terms of a quadrant. So visualize a box divided into 4 different squares, 4 different sections. And we look at 4 different areas of your avatar and how to identify those. So we're not going to cover all 4 today, but I'm going to share with you just one of them to give you an idea of how we walk you through the exercise. But in the book, just know that you will have an extensive questionnaire. There's a lot of illustrations. There's a worksheet. In the back of the book, we have lots of worksheets. You can make a copy of it and use that with your team to help identify your avatar. So one of the ones that's my favorite is hopes, because I think that if you can identify the hopes of your avatar, you will be well above and beyond in terms of your skill set and understanding who your customer is. And a lot of times when I teach this concept, people are really wowed. They're like, wow, I never really thought about that. So for example, if you say to me, Leanne, my ideal customer is, let's say, a 52-year-old crocheter. Her name's Carol. Maybe she's not just in there looking for cheap yarn. Maybe she is. Maybe some of the avatar is around price sensitivity and economy. But I would argue that if you can really delve into Carol's hopes, like, for example, maybe she's looking for connection, peace, the joy of making something for her grandkids. Her hope is that when her daughter-in-law opens the baby blanket at the baby shower, she's going to have a sense of pride in family. She's going to feel great about herself. She's going to have those warm and fuzzy feelings in her heart. And so when she associates that sense of pride and that you've helped satisfy the hope that she had to feel good about herself, you now have elevated yourself as a brand beyond just being a brand and a business and a product, right? You start to have a place in Carol's life that creates loyalty and trust, right? And we all know about how important it is to nurture that trust with your customer. And if you haven't listened to it, the last episode that I recorded talks all about the know, like, and trust funnel and how that is really where conversions happen. When you have developed trust with your customer, and it doesn't matter what you offer or what you're selling, they're going to buy it from you. Now you have arrived at sort of the pinnacle of marketing savvy, right? And that's what we hope to teach our clients at the agency and with our book. Of course, it's called Marketing Magic for Savvy Craft Businesses. And we want you to be one of those savvy craft businesses, not just sort of turning the wheels and getting the work done, but again, elevating your game so that you have customers that are loyal and buy from you all the time. So here's the real key to understanding this section of our avatar quadrant, the hope section. It's identifying those emotional behaviors that are happening behind the purchase. Because like I said, people are not just buying products. Yeah, they're buying products, but they're also buying feelings. They're buying self-identity. They're buying community. And they're buying experience. Marketing is so much more about experience than it is about a thing or about a widget that you're selling.
Your website is often the first thing a customer sees when they're learning more about your crafty business. Make that first best impression with a modern, functional, intuitive website that delivers your content quickly and cleanly. We offer a comprehensive website audit that covers technical aspects, layout, and design, as well as a full customer journey experience. Then, we present our findings to you and provide a checklist of priorities. Do your upgrades yourself or get an estimate for us to complete the work. Learn more at stitchcraftmarketing.com.
So I'll share a little story from one of our clients at the agency. This client had a line of luxury knitting needles, sort of higher priced at the higher end of the market. And at first, their marketing really emphasized craftsmanship and just the materials and sourcing. But after we worked with them a little bit on getting more clear around their avatar, we discovered that their customer wasn't just interested in the quality. Part of that we excavated was that she wanted to feel elevated as a maker. Again, she had pride in the tools. She wanted tools that matched her identity as an experienced, stylish, a serious crafter. Crafter with a capital C, knitter with a capital K. And a lot of her hopes were around that sense of feeling, how she felt when she was at knit night, for example. And once we helped that brand position themselves to reflect more of that, we felt like we had just nailed down a much better marketing strategy. And then all of our messaging followed. So when we helped them with all that messaging, that is also in alignment. It's using words, vocabulary, images, all around that sense of hope, right? That feeling that their avatar had using their product. So let's do just a little reflection moment for you. If you're on the treadmill, you'll just have to keep this in your mind. But if you're at your desk or you're in a place you can jot something down, I got a couple questions for you. One is, who is your most loyal customer? That could be a really good starting place for you. And what is one of their hopes when they're buying from you? Again, some examples might be if you've got an older avatar, it could be around that sense of pride or skill or accomplishment. Could be a younger avatar, someone maybe a modern quilter might have a sense of belonging to, a more modern community. They can speak the lingo. They can design their quilts to feel like they're part of that community. And then what is motivating them to buy from you and not the competition? How are you in this moment pushing that button for them in this square? I talked about it as a quadrant. So one of the squares is hope. What are you doing in your business to fill the bucket of hope for that avatar? I often get asked if you can have more than one avatar. And of course, the answer is yes. And we go through a lot of examples in depth in our book. And there is a way to finesse that. And I say finesse because it's not super straightforward. However, think about it. Most of you are using the same newsletter. Maybe you're sending one once a month. You have one version of your social channels that reaches out to your entire audience. So you do have to be savvy in how you navigate multiple avatars. I'll just throw out an example that I often talk about in my talks, which is a client that we had for about 10 years. Some of you might recognize the name. It's Leanne, and they produce a delicate wash product. And when we worked with Jen and her team, we helped her sort of figure out that there was 3 distinct avatars for her wash product. We had fiber makers, such as hand knitters, crocheters. We had a second avatar that we called eco baby mamas. And those were mothers that were predominantly concerned with the wash, how they were washing their babies' clothes and handmade diapers. And then we had a third avatar, which was our lingerie enthusiasts. And so our strategies and our messaging, and even our segmented offerings were all very distinctly different. Sometimes it was, we were working with sort of brand recognition. We were in the know part of our know, like, and trust funnel. And so some of our messaging was more generic, but we definitely wanted to make sure that when we got to the like part of our funnel and the trust part of our funnel, as we got deeper into the relationship with the customer, we segmented differently. We had much more specific messaging, and we found that the sales were just more robust within those avatars. And that's the feedback we got from customers. Like, you guys get me. You understand what my specific challenge is. And it was different for the lingerie folks than it was for the hand makers. It was different for them than the eco mamas. And so, once we got to a place where we really elevated the messaging and we were super clear on segmenting, we found, that flywheel, I call it a flywheel, just started to turn. And we found a lot of marketing success for them. So I want to be clear, crafting your avatar is not about limiting, again, who you're selling to. It's not that you're just selling to those 3 avatars or however many you have with your business. It's about clarity. When you focus your message on one well-defined audience, or maybe it's another one, but you're distinct about those, others are still going to find their way to you. Those customers are still going to come in, but you've now got a magnetic pull instead of a generic push, right? I'll say that again. You've got a magnetic pull instead of a generic push. And then your brand becomes, you're in a role, you're in a position where you are the problem solver for your customer. You're the heroine that helps your customer shine. Your brand is not the hero, your customer is. You're sort of a magical support character that helps them, your customer, have an experience in your shop or with your brand or your product that guides them through that customer journey. And you can get it right with a lot of other aspects of looking at your avatar, like, oh, are they female? How old are they? Like some real basic, bare bones, sort of generic identifiers for your customer. But again, the most successful clients that we work with really know how to level up with this. They deeply understand their customer and what motivates them. And once they have that, they can really craft that customer experience that far surpasses their competitors. And I would even argue, if you are listening, you're somebody that's like, oh, I've got a competitor an hour away, or I sell online and I feel like I'm just drowning in competitors. This is your way out. This is the way that you differentiate yourself, and you just have your competitors in the rearview mirror. You're not even worried about them, because you have such a solid, firm, deep understanding of your customer and what they want that your competitors can't even serve them in that same way. And you'll feel that weight lifted where the competition doesn't feel as threatening. So like I said, we've got 3 other components to our avatar. I just talked about hope today on today's episode. All 4 aspects of the quadrant are covered in our book, Marketing Magic for Savvy Craft Businesses. And I would love it if you got your hands on a copy of that, really studied those other aspects of the avatar, work through the exercises, pull out those worksheets, do it with your team so that everybody's on the same page. Name your avatar or multiple avatars so that you are referencing those people in your business functions. So like at Stitchcraft Marketing, our avatar, her name is Carol. And we talk about Carol all the time. We reference Carol when we're writing blogs. I'll say to my team, hey, there's a couple of phrases or words in this blog that I don't think Carol is going to understand. And immediately, everyone on my team knows exactly what I'm talking about. I don't have to explain the nuance of that. So again, I would highly encourage you to bring it to your team, use a name for your avatar so that it becomes just second nature when you are working on your marketing and your strategy. And I would say when you get that right, your marketing really is going to start feeling like there's something magical happening. So that's all I've got for you on today's episode of Business of Craft. Thanks so much for spending time with me. If you want to get your hands on a copy of Marketing Magic for Savvy Craft Businesses, you can do so on our website, stitchcraftmarketing.com. And stay crafty. Hope to see you here the next episode. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business of Craft. Hey, before you go, don't forget about all of our free resources, including our monthly magic newsletter, our twice monthly blogs, our free live monthly office hours where you can jump on, learn a topic, and get a little bit of free consulting, our executive summary of the 2023 research for craft retailers that you can download directly from our website. And we have a lot of tutorial videos as well as recordings of all of our past office hours on our YouTube channel. So find all those resources at our website, stitchcraftmarketing.com. And on our website, you can also purchase a copy of our book, Marketing Magic for Savvy Craft Businesses, in Kindle, paperback, or audio format. See you next time.